The Man Whore Podcast is sponsored by AdamMail.com. Enjoy 35% off a prostate massager or another sexy toy when you use the promo code MANWHORE at AdamMail.com. Now let's get to the show.
Welcome to the Man Whore Podcast.
Shout out to the sluts and the scholars, the whores, and listening to the Man Whore Podcast Comedy Hour. No, that's a different podcast. What's going on, everyone? How you doing? Welcome to my show. If you are new to my program, this is a podcast where I typically talk to women I've hooked up with about sex, dating, and why we didn't work out. Yeah, I know it sounds like bitches I banged with Billy Procida, but I promise it's not that show. This week, I've got a very special guest on, not one of my former flames, fellow sex podcaster and therapist, Nicoletta Heidegger. Man, I hope I said her name right. I've got her. She's the co-host of the Sluts and Scholars podcast, and I can't wait to share her with y'all in a bit. But first, show dates, people. Show dates. All right. March 25th, this Sunday. I'm doing a roast battle at Comedy Fight Club. That is at Lovecraft. That is at Lucky Jack's down on the Lower East Side. It's at 10:30 p.m. Free to attend. I will be getting heavily insulted. Then April 3rd, I will be at the Soho Playhouse at 9:30 p.m. Also a free comedy show. If you want to see me do some jokes, some yucks, coming out to that. And then again, next Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, we've got another Fan Whore Facebook Live Hangout. So put that in your iCal, your GCal, your cow, a Post-it note. Have a friend put it in their calendar, then call you to remind you when it's time to log on to my Man Whore Podcast Facebook page so we can hang out for an hour. All right, those are the show dates, people. Obviously, there's a very important show, not show date, but dates you want in your calendar. Man Whore Con 2018 is coming up later this year. Yes, August 3rd through August 5th, we've got Man Whore Con here in New York City. I want to see y'all fan whores here. We got like over 20 people coming already. $85. So if you still want to enjoy the super early bird discount, head on over to manwhorepod.com/tickets. All right. So now my shitstorms. My shitstorms, plural. I've got let's just say, moving forward, at the pseudo request, I don't really call it a request because technically she never requested. She just called me a sociopath and told me what to do. Moving forward, I know I don't talk about my ex of almost 2 years terribly often as much on the podcast anymore. But, in the future, we're not going to be using her name anymore. She is, I wouldn't really call it a request. She just kind of gets drunk and calls me really mean, nasty names and then tells me to do it. One time. But I'm going to just round that up to a request to make shit easier. But my that ex is going to be referred to as P from now on, moving forward. So if you hear me talk about P, that is that's what that's about. I saw a movie on Sunday night which really blew my fucking socks off. I'm not going to get into like a full movie review, but the movie Love, Simon is now in theaters. It's in the gay high school kid category of movies and it is beautiful, and I wept my fucking eyes out. I connected with that movie in ways that still make me mildly uncomfortable. Not uncomfortable, just now confused. It's fine. It's okay. I'll get into that one day. So, beautiful movie about a high school senior who is gay and no one knows, and he's closeted, and it's based off of a book that I believe of the same name, and it's just a really wonderful movie. I cried for the last 15-20 minutes of the movie straight through, just full on loud sobs, tears down my face the whole way. I was walking out with my friend Celia, and I was just like, I don't know, do I like wipe the tears away, or do I wear this like a badge of honor on my face? If you want to know like my full thoughts on Love, Simon, go to my Instagram, go to my Man Whore Podcast Facebook page. You will see a lengthy read with a little photo over there. But the short version is go see the movie Love, Simon. It's inclusive. It's considerably diverse considering it takes place in the middle of the country. And it's a major studio film. Go vote with your dollars. Go see this movie. It's I think it's bring tissues and shit. I've had up until Friday, I was having a good week. I gotta say, I took a PR class. I went and saw some roller derby. I shot for my friend's web series where I got to play a cat caller. Went on a couple really good dates. It was good, but then there's just been this shit in between. I in particular want to talk about Friday night. I went to a pool party social. It was sponsored by Hacienda, my wonderful sex positive community out here in New York City, and they threw a pool party. It wasn't a sex party, just like a pool party with sexy people. It's the type of thing where if you were curious about non-monogamy or polyamory or sex positivity, just wanted to be in a fun, sexy space, you could come and hang out at that, go in the sauna, great time. So I finally got to go to one on Friday over at the Grace Hotel. Had a fantastic time, but I got put in a situation that makes me uncomfortable, and I left feeling disappointed, mostly in myself. There's a woman, we're going to call her, who I'm friendly with. We don't hang out often, but we text here and there. But she's been kind of flirty with me, and I've decided I didn't want to. I went to that party being I'm not going to hook up with. I just decided, it's not something that I wanted to do. I also didn't really feel a lot of chemistry. She's nice and friendly and slamming hot. I'm very shocked I don't want to sleep with her because she's gorgeous. But for some reason, I made a decision in my mind. It's fine. I don't have to justify it. You sometimes just decide I don't want to sleep with a person. You don't have to explain yourself. So go to the party, be she's going to be there. And I've decided I don't want to sleep with her. And that is an okay decision to make. She's there. We're hanging out. We're being friendly. It's fine. But then there's this couple. And the babe portion of the couple, I'm going to refer to as babe because she was, I think, in my opinion, the most gorgeous woman at that party. She was this beautiful, thick, great makeup, very fun haircut, badass personality type. I was all heart eyes emojis over her, right? And so there's some flirting going down. And I'm not flirting with I'm flirting with babe, but pulls me in and whispers to me don't fuck this up because they have a hotel room here and they want to invite us up for a foursome. Now, I don't think was under the impression that I didn't want to sleep with her. But if it meant sleeping with babe, I was willing to go with the flow and do stuff with her. I think a lot of ladies out there in the swinger world have done things with dudes that they maybe didn't want to do because maybe they want to hook up with the woman portion or vice versa. The ones who aren't, some women out there who are swingers, not thrilled to eat pussy, but they'll eat some pussy to also bang the hot husband. We've all been in these situations and you make your own consolation. So I made that in my mind. I was okay, that's going to be okay with me. And later in the evening, babe brings up the topic of STIs and asks if everyone's been tested. And we go through that. And everyone's cool, cool, cool. And babe points at me and says, you and me, we're good to go. So I'm oh, great. This very pretty dominant lady wants to do things with me. This is, and maybe even going to boss me around a bit. This is going to be great. I go to coat check. We all go to coat check to get our stuff to go upstairs. I'm checking my phone. I'm floored discovering that I missed a historical moment of a 16 seed beating a 1 seed Virginia. But I get over it and I start walking to the elevator. All of a sudden, babe has now recruited some new, 4 more people to join us upstairs. 3 more guys and a lady. The lady, we're going to call her Nice. I'm going to call her Nice. Nice is a nice lady. I'm not at all attracted to Nice. I'm not interested in playing with Nice. And then there's also these other 3 guys. And I was kind of uncomfortable that we were switching from a foursome to an orgy, but I'm trying to be social and go with the flow. And it's okay, Billy. It's okay. I've now missed probably 2 opportunities to advocate for myself, to say, hey, cool that you're excited for a foursome, but I don't really want to. I don't want to take our friendship to a sexual level. Could have said that. I didn't. When I found out we were going to have this nice 8-person orgy in a hotel room that maybe I wasn't prepared for, I had an opportunity to say, you know what, guys, actually, I'm good. I could have lied and just been like, oh, I feel tired, whatever. And I didn't. I go up there. I get on the bed. Gets on the bed. Babe's on the bed. Babe's boyfriend's on the bed. Babe's boyfriend starts going down on her. Babe points at me and tells me to go down on. Again, I'm not particularly interested in hooking up with. I made out with her in the pool because it was 4 of us kind of all making out. I'm trying to go with the flow. But I go down on because Babe knows I like following directions from dominant women. We had, talked about it previously. I want to hook up with Babe. Babe has also made it expressly clear that she wanted to do stuff with me. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to eat real good to show Babe how much how good I can be and all the things, whatever. Then another guy takes my place eventually, and Babe has guys cycling through her pussy, like different dudes popping in, eating her pussy, kind of waiting for my turn. And while I'm chilling around, I'm like touching Babe a little bit, going in for some kisses. Nice is on the bed as well, getting eaten out by what I believe was her significant other. And she's being kind of loud in her moaning. Wonderful, fun. But Babe points at me and tells me, make out with her so she'll stop being so loud. Again, I have no interest in hooking up with Nice. I've exchanged maybe 2 sentences with Nice. But Babe told me to do it. And Babe's super sexy. And I'm going to do things for Babe to be able to get with Babe because Babe told me we were doing that. So I'll do that. Okay. So I'm making out. I'm doing my best making out I've got in my bag. And then at some point, like the next guy's going to eat Babe out and Babe tells him to wash his mouth out with Listerine. She's like, there's Listerine in the bathroom. So I go to the bathroom too with him and we both take some swigs of Listerine, showing Babe, hey, look, I'm ready for my turn. When you're ready, I'm all Listerined out and prepped for you. Then all the ladies have come. And then she's like, okay, cool. I think we're good. And we're going to wind down and her and her boyfriend are going to, get to sleep and whatnot. So it was the very polite kicking out of everybody. So we all start getting dressed and I am feeling really, not great. I've just done some sex acts with 2 people I had no interest in because I was told to. I mean, at one point I'm fingering Nice because no one's going down on Nice and Nice asks me, I mean, look, what am I supposed to do in the situation where we've got 6, 7 people on a bed, all fooling around, and then someone else tells me to do something with a person? What am I going to do? Be like, yeah, I don't want to make out with Nice. I'm just going to single her out in front of the whole group to be like, yeah, I don't want to. No, I tried to go with the flow. Granted, this is one of I haven't been in a lot of impromptu orgies. Most of the orgies I'm in are like super planned. I like plans. Plans are good. Plans come with rules and boundaries and things like that. This was like an impromptu orgy, which was supposed to be a semi-impromptu foursome. I chose not to like possibly humiliate her in front of the group. So when she's asking me directly to finger her and I'm still waiting for my turn with Babe, I'm like, okay, but I mean, Jesus, at one point I am like the news is on mute on the TV in the hotel and I'm just so disinterested and so kind of dejected and so on autopilot that I'm like watching New York 1 News while fingering the fuck out of this woman. So Babe, we all start leaving and I mean, I leave my number. I write my number down and go like, hey, in case you want it. Because at this point, it seems like maybe she's changed her mind, which is fine. Or, maybe didn't get to me. Or maybe she genuinely was tired. I don't know. But I left feeling fucking used. And I left feeling dejected and rejected and the other jecteds. I left the hotel and took a long walk to the train. Like disappointed and mad at myself because I didn't stand up for myself. One-on-one, I've done pretty good when a woman wants to say, have like penis and vagina sex. And maybe I'm not ready or I'm not comfortable or maybe I'm just not feeling like it. Cause sometimes I feel bloated and I'm down to eat your pussy, but I'm not really interested in fucking you. Who knows what it is? I've been really good at advocating for myself and saying, I don't want to do this. someone says, ooh, I really want you to fuck me. I'd be like, I'm not really in the mood to fuck right now, but I'd be happy to totally finger you or eat your pussy or something else. I've gotten really good at that and not being uncomfortable. But in a social situation, I felt so uncomfortable saying no. I felt pressured, even though Babe didn't really pressure me. I mean, granted, Babe knew I was going to do what she told me to do because I'd been saying a lot of yes ma'ams over the course of the evening. She knew I was going to do what she told me to do, and she told me to do these things with these people. But I never felt pressured. I felt like, oh, this is part of the sexiness that leads up to when we fool around. So although I wasn't pressured, I felt pressured. I acknowledged didn't do anything wrong. I didn't tell I didn't want to hook up with her. That was my job to do. And I didn't do that. So I left feeling pressured. I left feeling used. I left feeling disappointed. And I left mad at myself. There were so many opportunities for me to trust my gut, follow my instincts, and I didn't. So that sucked. I imagine it's something a lot of people, I don't mean to gender it, but I'm sure a lot of women have been in situations where they didn't trust their gut and then ended up in sexual situations they weren't comfortable in. For me, this is one of those. No impropriety necessarily by anyone. Maybe not the most ethical way about going about things. But no one did anything explicitly bad. I'm not angry at Babe. I'm not angry at just kind of angry with myself. I mean, hopefully next time I will stand up for myself and figure out the smooth way to get myself out of situations I don't want to be in. I woke up on Saturday and I felt like, okay, last night was not great. There are things I could have done better. Next time I will do them better. And hopefully I will. And I hope anyone out there who's ever been in that scenario, who has made out with someone they didn't want to make out with, who was just trying to go with the flow, who are worried about damaging his ego or making someone feel bad, and so they blew someone they didn't want to blow. Unless you're getting something out of it, I hope you don't next time. I hope you also stand up for yourself and advocate for yourself. Because, I haven't done a walk of shame in a long time. I'm really happy to report that before Friday, I have not had regrettable sex in a really long time. You know, all the sex I had was very purposeful. It was sex I wanted to have. And when I didn't want to have sex with someone, I would say so. And Friday was a slip. And then moving forward, I'm just going to do better then. And I hope you do too. That's what I want to talk about. That's what I wanted to share with y'all before all this other shit hit the fan in the last 2 to 3 days. And I may or may not get into some of it next week. We'll see. But that's the story I wanted to share with y'all. Yeah. I know it's not the happiest thing, and I don't know how to transition out of it. I will say, you know who I met? This was fun. There was a guy in the orgy who, when we were getting dressed, he's poly. He's part of the poly community. And when we were getting dressed, people kept calling me Billy. And then he was like, do you have a podcast? And I was like, yeah. It was like, oh, I recognize who you are. And I was like, oh, that could be good or bad, depending on where you recognize me from. He's like, yeah, it's not great. I was like, yeah, are you part of Open Love and Why? He was like, yeah, I saw that whole you being kicked out of the group thing. He said, this is my favorite part. He said, you're not how I thought you were going to be. What am I, a half decent human being? He was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, I know. Don't believe everything you read on the internet. Sometimes you meet someone in person and realize there's just a lot of overly sensitive people who run Facebook groups. That was my favorite one. That was the slightest bit of vindication leaving that hotel was, well, somebody who thought I was a monster because of the internet met me and was like, oh, he's not a monster. Cool. That felt nice. Also, a shout out to Chris. I don't know your last name, but Chris, who I met at the pool party, that was fun. I was in the sauna and I was talking to somebody, and then all of a sudden he was like, do you have a podcast? And I was like, yeah. It was a really common question that night. It was very weird. Do you have a podcast? I was like, yeah. He's like, oh my God, dude, I'm here because of you. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, you kept talking about Hacienda. So I looked them up and then I got on their mailing list so I could be part of the community and explore all of this. So he signed up and now he goes to Hacienda events. And I was like, oh, dude, that's so fucking awesome. I mean, like, I wasn't promoting the event. He just like, he found Hacienda because of me and that felt cool. And so if you're in the greater New York area, if you're interested in socializing with other sex positive or poly or kinky or just generally sexy people, consider attending Hacienda events. Go to wearehacienda.com. That's WeAreHacienda. Look, there'll be a link in the show notes. Get on their mailing list because they have some really great events. A lot of good stuff. And it's a community that has made me feel accepted and wanted and loved. And sometimes they've even made me feel like I'm not a monster, which is really helpful. But yeah. Before we get to this week's guest, Nicoletta Heidegger. Look, I told you I don't have transitions for this. I want to remind y'all that we have a big milestone goal for the 4-year anniversary, April 16th. I want to give y'all more Man Whore podcasts. I'll be honest with you. There's some stories that just are never, because they don't want to be on it themselves, or it's a Craigslist person and I have no way of reaching them. I want to share those stories on the podcast. So what we're going to do is if we can hit $1,000 pledged on Patreon by April 16th, I will start producing additional free Man Whore pod everybody every month. So if there's 4 episodes a month or 5 episodes, there's going to be 5 or 6 episodes instead, okay? If you want more Man Whore podcasts, go become a member of my Fan Whore community on Patreon for as little as $1. And I promise you, $1 helps because right now, as of this recording, we are only $169 away from the goal. So we've got a little less than a month. I think we can hit it. I would love to hit it. It would mean a lot to me. It would give you more episodes every month from me. And there's all sorts of other wonderful perks and rewards that you get with your membership. So again, help us reach the goal. Head on over to patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. That's Patreon, patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. Become a member today. Help us reach that goal. And if you're listening to this after April 16th, I mean, still go become a member. You still get all sorts of wonderful privileges, even if it does or doesn't help us reach the goal. And now for this week's guest, Nicoletta Heidegger. I am trying to bring my energy level up and feel good and happy and optimistic as we move forward into this week's show. Nicoletta is a marriage and family therapist, and she is also the co-host of the wonderful Sluts and Scholars podcast, which I've listened to myself and quite enjoyed. We recorded while we were out in Vegas covering the AVN Awards. It was a last minute booking. And I was kind of, I got an email from her publicist and they're like, hey, would you like to talk to her? She had a very tight window to record. This is a shorter conversation than we normally have because she was kind of under a tight deadline. As a therapist, I will admit, this episode kind of devolves into a little bit of a Billy goes to therapy episode. This was my 4th recording that day. I was very emotionally exhausted. I was very emotionally drained. I had been connecting and disconnecting with multiple wonderful people. But, my empathy tank was starting to run dry. And by the end of it, I felt like I just needed to lie down on a couch and talk to somebody. And I talked to Nicoletta. I did. I think you're going to enjoy this episode. My intern loved this episode. When she sent me the show notes, she was like, I love her. I am subscribing to her podcast right now. And I hope you all feel the same way. Slight note, this episode was recorded at the end of January before I got dumped by my most recent ex. So when you hear about a girlfriend, it's not a new girlfriend. It is that girlfriend. So I hope no one gets confused. Let's go ahead and get to my conversation with Nicoletta Heidegger. Like I said, it's a very informal but formal. It's like very it's weird. I have to be like, it's very professional. It's a real show. Like people listen to it.
I know.
It's my job, but also like it's very informal.
Yeah. No, we do the same thing. We're conversational on our show too. So I'm happy to be here, surrounded by all the things.
We're gonna raise this guy for you, just so I can pick you up better, and then I pretend I know how levels work. And we say stuff.
Hello. Can you hear me?
We say things like hello, and we say, can you hear me? These are all great. So far, nailing it.
I feel like you really got this in my face like a dick, right? Staring down the shaft.
Stare it down. Oh, yes, a phallic joke about microphones.
I'm sure you have not heard that before.
Never, ever have I ever.
Very original.
Yeah, both with podcasting and in comedy. Oh, so yeah, no one's ever called this a big black dick before. It's never happened.
I was happy to be on this podcast because I feel like our titles are similar. You've got man whore and we've got sluts and scholars. Mm-hmm. So how are you reclaiming the man whore title?
So that's the thing. I'm not even. It wasn't a political statement when I chose it.
You're just like, oh, I'm a man whore, so this is a good.
Well, it's more like other women called me a man whore a lot.
Okay. So what does that even mean?
Well, I had this I started the show like about 4 years ago where I had this problem. Women would sleep with me, but they wouldn't date me. And I wanted to find out why. Because like I wanted a relationship. I wanted someone to love me back. But anytime, I wanted to get more serious, it was always the woman who told me she just wanted to keep it super cash. And so I was like, let's fucking find out why. It was just such a repetitive problem. And so, but I remember some women called me like jokingly, be like, oh, you're such a man whore. Because I am lovey-dovey and I have feelings and I love and
you
romance.
Have feelings? Men have feelings?
I have a few of those. But at the same time, I also love sex. And I love having fun, different sex. I'm very open and honest talking about sex, even since before I started doing this show. So that's one reason why it's called Man Whore Podcast. And another reason, good marketing. It's just a good title in my opinion. It stands out.
Okay.
You walk around convention floor, it says Man Whore Podcast. They're like, oh, that's so funny.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, we get that too. That's why I'm wearing my Sluts and Scholars shirt.
Oh, yeah, I need to get this. This is a Man Whore Podcast shirt. It says Man Whore Podcast on the back, but it says keep calm and stay slutty. And I'm just realizing like people are kind of really over this meme. So
the like keep calm and
yeah, and whatever.
Yeah, you know what? I am really over that.
Yeah, but I do have another one that's great, and it's the one I'm actually proud of, and so I think I finally found my first T-shirt that not only I like wearing but might actually sell. But it says I'm saving pegging for marriage.
Are you actually?
I mean, not literally, but I have been saving pegging for like a special someone. I haven't done pegging. I've done plenty of butt stuff.
Pegging is great.
I bet, and I would love to know, but I just feel like the difference between pegging and say fucking my ass with a dildo or with your fingers or something or putting a butt plug in me.
It feels more personal.
Yes, exactly. It's such a more intimate thing when you
like how some sex workers have the no make out rule. It's like
it's my least favorite rule with sex workers is no making out. It's my second favorite part of being sexual. I like fucking, then I love making out. So much so I could just make out for hours, not come, and still be fine. And then I guess oral is a very close third.
So what is it about the pegging that's so
because she's grabbing my hips and thrusting. It's that act of strapping it on, thrusting into me.
Being like really submissive to somebody's
it's a
penetration.
I find the thrusting part of it, the grabbing me, the actual fucking me is more intimate. And so the first time I do it, I'd like it to be someone I feel safe with and that I'm in love with and that I know cares about me. I mean, look, I don't need someone to care about me to stick a finger in my ass. That's
anyone can do that.
Yeah.
We're doing it right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, honestly, stranger things have happened on this podcast while the mics were on. I did one episode recently where we had oral sex auditions.
On you?
No, I had a friend who's very sexually frustrated. Couldn't find a guy with high sexual IQ. So we did an episode where I had 5 guys like come at appointment times to audition, and they had 10 minutes to go in and only using fingers and tongues make a first impression. Their pants always stayed on, and then after 10 minutes I knock on the door and they leave. And then we would do like pre-game, post-game, and then she would review. And
did she like that? Because in my head, I'm thinking like, okay, sure, there are some people who could just go right for it and it would feel pleasurable. But for me, if there's no like other connection before and maybe not some like teasing, touching, it would be like.
I mean, it's not like, look, if your style was to dive straight in head first, like you can do that. But I mean, most people like start making out and playing with nipples. Again, you didn't have to necessarily knock it out of the ballpark the first time. You just had to make a good first impression to say, hey, I kind of know what I'm doing. And if you give me more than 10 minutes, you're going to really like it. And maybe we'll even fuck if you want us to. Cool. So we did, I've done that. I don't know. I want to do some fun stuff in the future. Maybe, do some stuff with 2 guests who are both receiving oral from people
while they're talking,
while we both talk. So like, imagine we were talking right now, but like my girlfriend was sucking me off, and like, do you have a boyfriend partner?
I do. I have a partner.
Okay, and your partner was going down on you, and then we tried to have this conversation.
Well, why didn't you tell me? I would have planned this differently.
Next time, then.
This would have been like such a more, not that it's not a fun podcast so far, but just, I'm just getting all these thoughts in my head of how it could have been.
Yeah, well, if we weren't on such a tight schedule, maybe we could do some sort of weird, fucking, crazy, kinky, elaborate thing. But such is life.
Time.
Such is life. So, but it's a good time to say I'm here right now with Nicoletta Heidegger.
Yeah,
I got it right. Okay,
close.
Cool. Oh, it's pretty close. How would you say it?
Heidegger.
Oh, I was too heavy on the G's. Heidegger.
But that's fine.
Okay.
I might even be saying it wrong. It's Austrian.
Well, not only are you the host of the Sluts and Scholars podcast, which is a fun sex podcast about sex and sex positivity and sex, right?
Sex.
You talk about sex,
Also sex.
and the sex stuff,
and some sex. It originally came up because we wanted to basically say that not just women, but all types of people and how they're judged for their sexuality. And so, you find that some people are seen as like not as smart or not as able to do their job based on how they handle their personal sex life. And so this was kind of like a poke against that of like, I can be a slut and a scholar at the same time. It doesn't have to be either or.
A scholarly slut.
A scholarly slut. So
or a slutty scholar.
Or a slutty scholar. And we will welcome people who are just sluts and just scholars as well. So you don't have to be both, but it's just kind of challenging that norm. But we talk about everything from anal to quote unquote small penises to pretty much anything you could think of. Sex workers, porn stars, performers, authors.
Fantastic. Yeah. We've had several of the same guests. I was listening to your episode with Dr. David Lay when I was on my way over here.
Oh,
in the car.
did he come on yours?
Yeah. He was on sometime, I think, like last year or 2 years ago, and he was great.
How did it go?
He's fantastic. Really fun. Funny story was I didn't realize he was. Did you do yours in person or Skype?
I know him from before, but we did ours via Skype.
So we do in person at his hotel room while I was in New York, and I didn't know he didn't have an arm. No one fucking told me. I'll put it this way. He doesn't put it in his press release.
Well, technically the arm is the whole thing.
He's missing a forearm and a hand. Yeah. And so I didn't notice this until we met at a
He's
restaurant.
very open to talk about it.
He is, but like also I didn't know but this is how much time it took. We met at a restaurant. We met. I shook hands. We walked a whole 2 city blocks to get to his hotel. We shared an elevator. We talked in his hotel room. Then he went to the bathroom and I was setting up. It was only when I went to hand him the microphone I was like, oh, there's something missing there in my head. Cause you don't just say that out loud.
So did he notice that you were like,
oh, I brought it
kerfuffled?
Up. I mean, I brought it up while we recorded because why would I admit I'm kerfuffled unless the mics were rolling?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but isn't that interesting that like that's something that's so noticeable?
Yeah.
Like that your mind would immediately go to like, oh, that's missing.
You know what it is? It's like I focus a lot on trying to make good eye contact. And that's one of the reasons why sometimes I worry like I might be autistic, but at the same time, it's like I make great eye contact, but is it because I was taught to make good eye contact and it's a rule in my head, or because I just naturally do it and I'm fine? I don't fucking know. I'm a weird person.
We'd have to spend more time together with you on my therapy chair for me to figure out if you were on the spectrum.
Yeah, there's a lot of arguments right now in both categories to be determined.
Keep me posted.
But no, I do a lot of eye contact, so I'm not looking at his arms. Just like if someone had let's say someone had massive tits, I probably might notice, but like a lot, it's not on my mind because I'm up here the whole time.
So you didn't notice my boobs?
I try not to.
Oh.
I'm trying to be respectful. Okay. Look, Twitter's not very kind to people who make mistakes like that.
Especially because you're a white man in this day and age.
Yeah, and there's a little more spotlight.
Yeah.
As there should be. Mm-hmm. But also it's caused me to be like, okay, don't look at tits unless you're invited. That's tends to be like my philosophy on life.
So how did he respond when you brought it up? Because I think he responds great to talk about.
Oh, we laughed.
Sex and accessibility and.
Yeah, we had a good laugh about it, and then I think we did like a Patreon bonus episode about what it was like, how it informed his sexuality, like growing up and things like that. Yeah,
interesting.
It was, again,
I always have wondered. I think I've asked him about this in person. I don't know if I got a straight answer, but I'm always like, do you like put that in people? Like the part.
What was the answer?
I don't know. I don't want to give away anyone's personal information. I honestly can't remember. But I mean, he's a pretty experimental person. I wouldn't put it past him.
That he is.
Love you, Dr. David Lay. You're amazing.
Fantastic. I mean, have you ever been with someone with some sort of disability similar to that?
Yeah, because I was gonna say like disability is so wide reaching. Like, I mean, I'm sure someone with a mental or
I'm gonna go with physical though. Something that
No, I haven't. And I think it just because I haven't had the opportunity. So I wouldn't.
So you're just waiting for the opportunity.
I'm waiting. Yeah. So if you're listening and you have a
literally roll up if that's the thing that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Can roll right through or crutch it up, whatever gets you here.
I love talking about it. I love talking about sex and accessibility and all those things.
Do you talk about this much in your practice? You're also I might phrase this wrong, but a marriage and relationships counselor or therapist?
Oh, close.
How do you say?
I'm a marriage and family therapy intern, but I'm like 100 hours away from being just a marriage family therapy therapist.
Marriage, family. I feel like, but I feel like the first hour should be dedicated to you nailing down how to say the thing.
Yeah. Well, you got me confused now. MFT.
MFT and MFT. Yeah, right.
And a sexologist.
So I imagine this stuff comes up when talking to, say, couples struggling in a marriage or someone.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, there was a great talk here at AVN. I think her name's Robin. She's amazing. Was talking about sex and disability. But it's, something like whether you're aging or there's it could be really anything going on, pain. There's a lot of like sex and accessibility stuff. So I would like to think that I would be informed, but I haven't really had the opportunity to practice it yet. Very cool.
Well, what made you want to be a therapist with such a specificity? You didn't just be like, I just want to be, a psychoanalyst or, whatever. You were like, I want to deal with, couples and families and sex. Yeah.
Yeah. So I grew up in Chatsworth, which if you don't know is the porn production or was the porn production capital.
Chatsworth where?
Chatsworth in Los Angeles.
Okay.
So it's like a suburb in the valley, basically. So if you've ever seen like Fast Times at Ridgemont High or Valley Girls or Clueless, it's like the valley. And so that was the porn production capital. It's pretty much only known for porn and Charles Manson, two wonderful things. And so I don't know how that necessarily relates, but I feel like I was destined to be someone who would be at AVN. Mm-hmm. And so most of the people around me never really felt comfortable talking about sex. There was a lot of dysfunctional families and just dysfunctionality growing up in LA. I had a great therapist growing up who has her own show as like a therapist.
Who?
Her name's Dr. Jen Mann. She has couples therapy on VH1. And so I had a good therapist with that. And then I was just always the person that like people felt comfortable asking. My dad's from Europe and my parents were pretty open. So they kind of let me explore my sexuality from an early age and didn't like shame me.
What's that look like?
I had a really good relationship with the like fireman's pole at the park.
Yeah.
So I would like grind up and down that.
You were the 5-year-old who was like on it a little too long.
Yeah, like way too long. I mean, who's to say what's too long? So I was on that, lamp posts, whatever, pillows, probably whatever I could get my hands on, which is like pretty normal for young kids. But most parents would be like, oh, no, like, what are you doing? Like, don't do that.
Sure.
And my parents were like, oh, she's almost done. Just let her finish.
Just let her finish.
Yeah.
But so they were cool with you discovering your body and masturbation.
Yeah.
What about when it started becoming partnered?
Very, very supportive. I mean, they were open to dialogues about that stuff. They would help me get the kinds of care that I needed and go to an OBGYN. And I felt like I could ask my mom mostly anything, my dad a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so I was comfortable. People would always have me be the one in like sex ed class to ask the questions. And then I went to college, and I worked at the like sexual health resource center and got really involved with that and knew I was going to study to be a therapist. So it just kind of came together. And then my senior year, I was the mascot in my undergrad at Stanford. I was the tree.
The tree?
Mm-hmm.
Ugh, no wonder Stanford's not known for...
Okay, but we like make fun of mascots. That's like the whole point. It's just like a satire. But I had a column. They asked me to do a column in the Stanford Daily called Sex Talks with the Tree. And so it all kind of came together.
Wild. When you're asking, you said like obviously, and this doesn't surprise me, but you said like, oh, you could ask your mom a lot, like almost anything about sex, and dad, you could ask a lot of things. What's like one of the questions you remember feeling like I have to ask dad this?
I don't think I ever thought like I have to ask him this. It was just like always an open conversation around it. But I think there were some specific things that he just didn't want to hear. Like when we were specifically talking about like experiences or pleasure and things like that. I think I would just leave it a little more personal.
How
private.
Dare my daughter be pleased?
He comes from a pretty small town in Austria, and like just him accepting the work that I do, I think is big strides for a small town guy like he is.
Right.
Yeah.
Do MFTs always deal with like sexuality, or is it, is it something you're trying, you would want to
wish,
but it's a thing you want to bring into your practice one?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think every therapist should have it, but unfortunately most therapists only have like one class, if at all, on sex. And so, I mean, how are you going to help people if you don't even feel comfortable talking about sex or addressing your own sex life?
Yeah.
So I hope that more MFTs who are listening get sex training.
I think a problem for a lot of, whether it be sex positive people, kinky people, poly people, queer people, is finding like a good sex positive therapist. I think that's my girlfriend right now wants me to go to therapy because I'm all fucked up. It's
Are you too open?
Huh?
Are you in an open relationship?
Yeah, we're polyamorous. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But they want me to go to therapy, and they initially were like, "Oh, you could go like next week easily." I was like, "Yeah, but I want to make sure I find the right therapist, because especially when I'm saying, look, my living is going to be around my dating and sexual history. I think your conventional therapist may go, well, this is a problem. Like you're oversharing. So I don't know. I'm sure there's plenty of ways you could read what I do for a living, but."
Or they might think that like you have issues because you're poly, or that the issues are that you're poly, and
or that I'm a deviant because I go on Craigslist and go to some sort of weird stranger
let
thing.
me know. You tell me later afterwards around where you live, and I can give you some referrals.
That would be great. I think is there anywhere on the internet a person could go find a safe list of people to see?
Yeah. So I actually work with this group now that Dr. Lay is helped a lot with. It's called the Sexual Health Alliance. Mm-hmm. And so their basic thing is to help educate people about sex who should know about it but don't. So that's therapists, social workers, OBGYNs, regular general practitioners, because most of them don't get any sexuality training. And so they step in and help train about things like, non-monogamy, kink, all sorts of things in between. But there is the ASECT website, which there are some people on there that are more sex positive than others. Mm-hmm. But ASECT is the American Association of Sex Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. AKA
the organization that initially intimidated me against ever becoming a sex educator, because I was like, oh, this looks like too much prep.
And there are so many wonderful practitioners who are not part of ASECT. Uh-huh. And so sometimes each city will have its own, like I know up in the Bay Area in California, there's like a sex positive, like listserv and sex positive healthcare thing. So you can check that out. In LA, there's, I think we have APACT, which is like people who are sex positive and that sex workers can go to. So like therapists that are specifically trained.
Oh, the adult performer advocacy something?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so there's some things like that in different states. So ASECT is like one national one where you can locate a professional and then check things out. But yeah, it's hard to find the right person.
Mm-hmm. And that's even without bringing in the sex angle, right? It's just hard to find a therapist that you click with.
Oh yeah.
Then you got to find one who, if you have something else going on, which most of us do, but especially if it's something so core to your life,
it's never
whether
just
it's
sex.
Yeah, or if you're whether it's being polyamorous or if sex life is public or whatever it is, or being a porn performer, it would be hard to find that right therapist.
Yeah, so it's kind of like dating. Like you really have to shop around and find the right fit for you.
And when you're kinky or poly or whatever, just like in dating, it becomes more difficult.
Yeah, or search on Psychology Today and look up someone who specifically says on their profile like kink and poly affirming, or kink and poly informed. And if you're feeling confused, contact some of those people. So that's like, feel free to contact me. Dr. Hernando Chavez is a great one.
And you're based out of?
I'm in Los Angeles, but we talk to people all and help you with a referral for someone else.
Fantastic. Yeah.
I bet I'm going to be getting an email from you after.
Oh, absolutely. Because I think it's like a condition of stay.
I think everyone should be in therapy.
Right. I mean, I like going to therapy. And then I stopped when I got a day job, and then time wise I couldn't do it. And then when I stopped having a day job, I was like, well, now I got the time, but I don't have the money. And, so I got to figure that out. But I kind of have a clock ticking on me to figure it out.
So what helped you keep going to be an educator, even though you saw like the ASECT standards?
I want to be very clear in case anyone who hates me that you're going to dinner
that you're
with
not
is
an
listening.
Educator.
Yeah. Billy's not a sex educator or sex expert. I'm just a comedian with a fuck show. I like to keep my standard. like to keep my bar nice and low.
So I'm held to.
I want to be held to the comedian standard of sex stuff,
which is very low.
Right. I crush that. But as I would maybe pass.
I feel that's selling yourself a little bit short. But I mean, I'm sure there are people who would disagree with me.
Well, if you call yourself a sex educator or a sex expert, or some sort of ist. then there's all these expectations. There's new standards people place on you. And ultimately, like, it's great if people learn stuff from my show. I like to think they're not necessarily learning from me, but rather the people I have on, like yourself.
Thank you.
Because the fuck do I know?
Well, you've lived a life. You have some experiences.
I mean,
this is turning into a therapy session already, where I'm like, come on, what's the positive here?
Babe, you here? I'm in therapy right now. Okay, can we stay together? Cool. It's but there are like different things, and rightfully so. Like, you should hold a sex educator. We should not be holding a sex educator to the same standards as a stand-up comedian. Just like we shouldn't be holding a fucking an actor to higher standards than Donald Trump, the president.
I don't know how you feel about this, but working in LA, I have a lot of people in the industry, not just the porn and adult industry, but like the entertainment industry, actors, comedians, and some of the most. Yeah, I don't know how to phrase this well, but some of the people who are really struggling the most are comedians.
Oh yeah, we're also.
So I find that interesting. Yeah, I mean, because it's like they found this way, but it's also this like self-affirming like thing where you don't feel confident, but you are in a job where people judge you based on you as the product, and it just seems like this vicious fucking cycle of like misery. And so even some of the people who are so funny, I'm like, wow, you are pretty dark.
Yeah, and then a lot of us are assholes. I am an asshole. That's the other thing.
What does that mean? What makes you an asshole?
That's the thing. I want to be held to the standard. Again, if I get held to the standard of I'm just some comedian with a podcast who's an asshole, then I look really good compared to that standard. And because that way, when I dip down, so it's like, you're being an asshole on Twitter. I was like, yeah, well, I never claimed to be otherwise. The Man Whore Podcast is sponsored by AdamMale.com. Your premium source for all things male sex toys. AdamMale.com actually sent me my very first male prostate stimulator. Typically, when I got to stimulate my prostate, I got to improvise. When I was in college, I would take like a sharp... am I admitting to this right now? In college, I would and before college even, I would use like a Sharpie. The smooth end. I'm not crazy. I would use the smooth end of a Sharpie to kind of get up in there, use my fingers. Eventually I got my hands on like one of those little vibrating bullets on a wire. I would use that. I got a 5-inch glass dildo. I would use other things, but never like a proper prostate massager. So they sent me the male Lux stimulator. I think it's the Lux LX3 Plus male prostate stimulator. Item number 7204 on their website. And I am very excited to give y'all possibly a live review of it inside me next week. But it looks like a fucking fantastic toy, and they got all sorts of cool stuff. They got prostate massagers, they got lubes. I'm really in the market for some new lube. I'll be honest with you. They got dildos, they got cock rings, they got condoms, they got bondage gear. Whatever you need, head on over to AdamMale.com/manwhore. You can enjoy up to 35% off plus free shipping. Gotta love that free shipping. Shipping, I'm always usually down to pay for. You know what it is? The handling. I'm not as keen on paying for that handling. But they're gonna give you free shipping, which is wonderful. So head on over to AdamMale.com/manwhore or use the promo code manwhore at checkout. And now let's get back to the show. I've also grown. I've had some incidences on Twitter and social media where, like, a lot of just impulse control stuff, and where empathy or something like that.
Empathy, whatever that is.
Whatever that. No, I literally had to. After, one of the people you're going out to dinner with. We don't talk because of something that happened over 2 years ago on Twitter for like a month.
Yeah, social media is the devil.
Oof. But no, I literally had to Google search the difference between empathy and sympathy because I wasn't sure, and everyone was telling me you don't have empathy, and I was like, well, I can't. Let me get back to you because I don't know. I don't know what that means. I don't know
what that is, so let me look it up.
I literally had to look it up, and then.
That's good that you're on a personal growth journey.
I'm trying to be more mature. I like to think I'm more mature at 28, going on 29, than I was when I was freshly turned 26, and I think that is way better than I was when I was 22.
So how do you deal with the haters?
I'm still learning. I talked to this guy, Nick Hawk. Do you know who he is?
I just like Nick Hawk because it sounds like Nick Cock. Like Mike Hawk.
Oh, you filthy pervert.
My partner always, he left a review for my podcast under Mike Hawk. And then we got picked up one time on a vacation, and he told the car company that was picking us up that his name was Mike Hawk because he really wanted him to be shouting Mike Hawk.
Mike Hawk, yeah.
Yeah, I'm...
Wonderful. The puns,
we are very immature. But I love you, babe.
Well, I talked to him and he said something that there's two people who have recently said things to me that have made me like rethink some things in terms of haters. Now, I used to get haters that I fully deserved.
Okay.
Because I was an asshole.
Fair.
And I handled situations not the best way possible. And I have tried to learn from those. I have apologized to the said people and whatever. And I'm not perfect. I fucked up since then. But like each year, I like to think like 2015, fucked up a ton. 2016, I fucked up less.
A little less.
2017, fucked up way less. And then hopefully, ideally each year.
We're off to a new year.
Right. Because like
new year, new you.
Right. But like one isn't perfect. And so like we have to be able to live in a society where we can make mistakes and bounce back from them. And just so long as one learns from those mistakes and tries to improve, my impulse control is not perfect, but like it's like I said, better. Well, like I like to now type response tweets. I like to type it out and then delete. Like so, never actually send it.
I think that's a good thing for everyone. Like if you're pissed off and want to really say something to someone, like write a letter that you never have to send to just get that shit out there.
Yeah. So with dealing with haters that so I'm focusing more on haters I don't think I deserve. So haters who don't let go of non-violent past from years past, or haters who are just kind of assholes. Or sometimes like if you jump
There's some trolls out there.
Yeah.
I got my first death threat.
Oh my God, congratulations.
Thank you. I still haven't we've made it.
I've been doing the show 4 years. I still haven't gotten a death threat.
It was like a not so direct, not like I'm going to come to your house and do this and kill you, but they were like, you should just die, you stupid dumb bitch.
What did you do? Exist as
you should just fucking kill yourself. And I was like, okay.
What did you do? Exist on the internet as a woman? How dare you?
No, I mean, I don't want to say I was asking for it because no one's ever asking for that, but I talk about controversial topics, and one of those is minor attraction. And so I made a video about non-offending pedophiles, minor attraction, and of course, bring on the trolls.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely want to talk more about that. Jesus, sure. But
I'm sure I'll get some more trolls who are listening. The hate fuels me. Honestly, when I was the mascot at Stanford, people fucking hate the tree.
Because it's a dumb mascot? Yeah.
It's dumb. Yeah, it's dumb. It is in your face. Everyone at school knows who you are. It's not like a hidden sacred thing like it is at most schools. I mean, it is sacred in a different way, but it's just, we're kind of obnoxious and we do funny things. The tree is kind of notoriously known for getting into trouble. And so I got tackled by a few fans. I've gotten a lot of threats and things. Like I had to have what we called tree protection services. We had to have like security.
So a bunch of people dressed up as Smokey the Bear, who would be a better mascot in the first place?
The Cal Berkeley is a bear. So we, obviously had a feud going, but I won a dance contest against that loser one time. So whatever. But the hate fueled me. So the more that people would be like, fuck you, tree. Like, I fucking hate you, tree. I was like waving and smiling and
behaving better, like just learning how to cope in different ways. But a lot of people said like, look, if you're doing something right, you're going to get haters. If you can't handle the haters, don't be in the public eye. Like that is a choice you make. If you want to be in the public eye, not everyone's going to love you.
I think it's feeling confident with yourself and like going against that voice that's telling you like, oh, I can't do this, or I'm not supposed to be in this, or I'm not doing something good. So if you're feeling more confident with yourself and supporting yourself, then those things don't knock you down so much. Versus if you're like already feeling shitty and someone says something shitty, it's like it's easy to fall.
For me, it's like reminding a person who has done both good and not good things.
That's what everyone is, though. Right,
but a lot of people on Twitter is, whether or not you're sex positive, you can be like a big mass fucking bully fest, and they forget that. And,
there's a lot of bullying of the bullying of the bullies.
Yes, it's like if you do,
which is like, why?
Yeah,
like, aren't you saying bullying sucks?
And no matter how much good you do, it's like if you have one infraction, people will freak over you. Granted, I've had more than one minor infraction. I have many minor infractions, but people freak out, and it's almost as if it negates anything good you've done. So that's one thing that I've learned is if you're gonna be like, if it's too hot, get out of the kitchen. But there's two guests I've had that have said things recently to me on this show that really kind of warped me. Nick Hawk, he's a gigolo. He was on that show Gigolos on Showtime, and
I haven't seen it, but it sounds great.
He was an interesting fella. I wasn't the biggest fan of him, but he said something great. He's basically,
oh my gosh, I'm waiting for like the episode after me where you're like, Nicoletta was on, wasn't the biggest fan, but
well, he said that like it's fine to have an ego. You do like he's like have an ego. Like he's like everyone should be so confident that they have an ego. The idea is there's a difference between having an ego and then just being an asshole, a cocky asshole about it, right? But so having ego, like don't feel shame for being who you are and for being great. Like if you're great, basically, I would say, I'll wrap it up with, he had one quote with fuck humility. So that was one thing. And then the other one was this guy, Daniel Saint. He runs an organization in New York City called NSFW, New Society for Wellness. It's like
play on not safe for work.
Yeah, it's kind of like a sex party group, but they do more than just sex parties. Mm-hmm. They have classes. They do weed workshops. They do a lot. It's like a lifestyle membership club, but they also it's a lot of sex parties. So he said, people want to take your mind space. They want to occupy your mind space, especially if you're doing something great and if you're being successful at it. People want to own your headspace.
Yeah, and you have energy vampires.
Exactly. And so you gotta not let them do that. So those are a couple things I've been focusing on in the last maybe 6 months to get myself to not care. For example, like you invited me to dinner and I know someone there doesn't like me and I don't have to go to that. And that I declined mostly for her sake, but, I don't have to sit here concerned there's someone out there who doesn't like me and I know their name and I know that they don't like me. I used to care. Yeah. I used to care and be like, oh fuck, there's someone at a dinner that doesn't like me. I was like, you know what? Some people aren't going to like me. Some of them are justified. Some of them are not. And, I move on and focus on my thing. They put the blinders up.
I feel like it's hard because I have to go into therapy role sometimes because I do hold space sometimes for the people feuding on social media because I'm friends of both people.
Do you mediate?
No.
Oh, okay. When you say hold space, I thought that meant
it for myself in my life. I have to keep this relationship separate from this relationship and know that I admire this person for that and this person for this. And then I see them feuding and it's hard not to feel like you have to choose a side. And so I guess therapeutically, I try to stay somewhat neutral and hear people out and hold space for whatever they're bringing to me.
Oh, you'd make a great divorce kid.
I'm divorce mediator.
No, I meant kid of divorced parents. Sounds like you'd be great. You won't choose mom, you won't choose dad. But look, I like you both for different reasons. Do your thing.
Yeah,
Seemed
I
really
probably
good for
did that in my own family's life, but I think so. I make less. And maybe this is I don't want to say this is ignorant or maybe it's privileged of me that I often will not make certain political broad statements on social media because I don't want a lot of clients to know certain things about me because I might have clients from both sides coming to me. I might have Trump supporters coming to me. And how are you going to support them? I might have perpetrators. I might have victims. And so, it's tough to be in the middle sometimes.
Wow.
And some people would say being in the middle is not an option because we need change. But sometimes it feels like I have to be because of my job.
Yeah. And so do you get into fights with your current partner?
Of course.
And does he ever go, hey, you're supposed to be better at this because you're supposed to be, you teach people how to have better relationships.
My dad has said that to me and I'm like, I am not working right now. Are you paying me? I'm just a human being. And I think sometimes when you put in all that energy to do that work during the day, then you get home and you've your cup has runneth over. Yeah. You've run out of the patience. And, that's what I do for work. Of course, I love my job, but I get home and I don't want to be on the therapy couch. And so I'm sure I could handle things better and I try to practice what I preach, but it's fucking hard. Yeah. So it gives me that word again, empathy for my clients when I know that they're having a hard time, making changes. Cause I'm I hear you, same.
Yeah. Well, so what do you do when you get into fights with the boo thing?
Well, I think fighting can be good for a relationship. It's just learning how to
fight.
Hey,
babe, you hear that? Are you listening? I hope you are.
I don't know you, but yeah, listen. I think fighting fair is important. And so if you learn how to fight fairly, then it's more of a conversation than a fight. So I think quote unquote fights are good as long as you're fighting fairly.
What's fighting fairly look like?
It does not look like cursing at each other. It does not look. Wouldn't say raising your voice is necessarily a bad thing. It might be in some couples. Obviously, physical violence is not a good thing. Those phrases of you always do this, you always do that. When you're globalizing what's going on, fighting when you bring back past things that have nothing to do with what you're talking about. There's so many ways not to fight well, but I think fighting fair means making sure that you're both in a space where you can talk. Because a lot of times when you're pissed off at your partner, you go into this space that people call part X. So part X is your really vulnerable, childlike, really fucked up part of yourself that when it gets triggered, you just lash out. And so if you're in that space, knowing that we can't have a conversation right now. Mm-hmm. And same thing for your partner.
And how can people? It's so strange to say like fighting's good, can be good for a relationship.
Yeah, fighting fairly.
Yeah, because like fighting can also be terrible for the relationship, and you know, without any like other information.
Right.
You have like no idea.
There's a great chapter in this book by my therapist, Dr. Jen Mann, and it's like a fighting fair chapter. I also did a video on it on my website, on my YouTube channel. So check it out for more. Yeah. Little self promo there.
Oh, of course. You'll get to do all the plugs. How long you been with the present partner?
It's been like almost a year and a half.
Okay, mazel, congrats.
Mazel, thank you.
Yeah. What?
Are you Jewish?
No, I just like the word mazel.
All right, okay.
You know, hey,
I'm Jewish.
No one's writing think pieces about the appropriation of that culture, though.
Sure, you'll be getting some hate tweets because you used mazel.
And I will learn to just mute and move on.
Not let that take your headspace.
Exactly.
I think it's an important conversation because how do we confront people who are maybe doing shitty things and need to be talked to without also bullying the bully?
We talked about that today. I talked to Ginger Banks,
cool.
the cam girl, porn person, and we were talking about it. It was like she's trying to kill people with kindness. She realized like, oh, if I talk to people who are, say, a Trump supporter or someone who's being shitty, to talk to them first, make your first and second attempts to be like civil, like in the DMs, like not putting them on blast to all your followers, to say like, hey, like you seem angry, doing things like that. Like when Sarah Silverman, did you read about that? Yeah. What she did with that guy was wonderful and beautiful, and how we should be handling things. The amount of times I would respond better to people sliding my DMs that say, hey, you posted this tweet. I thought it was kind of offensive, or like it triggered me, or this, that, and the other thing. Even if I'm going to disagree with them, I feel like I'm hearing them out. When someone just like posts on a comment thread and we barely talk, it seems so insincere that I'm just like, I don't want to take you seriously. And now I'm taking your point and I'm attaching it to this perceived insincerity. So now what might have been a good point has been tainted by the delivery system in my head. And so now I don't think, oh, that person delivered a message wrong. That I'm thinking, oh, the message is wrong, when the message might be very, very good and valid.
Yeah, some people would say don't even acknowledge some of those people. You know, it's not worth it. You got to do what's right to make sure you're okay.
Time for the fan whore appreciation moment, everybody. What is up? This is the part of the podcast where I like to thank a few of the members of my Patreon community, because all of you are goddamn heroes who help me pay some rent. Okay, I want to give a thank you to Ivan K. Thanks for all the joking techniques. If anybody needs a joking tip, if anybody doesn't know what joking is or how to spell joking, Ivan K is the guy you want to talk to. Thanks for your membership, buddy. Next up, Guru. I don't know how to pronounce the O with a slash through it, but that's the O I'm trying to say when I say Guru. My Norway patron. What is up? Oh my gosh, I've never had one of you before. I didn't even know people in Norway listen to this show, and I'm glad you do, and I'm glad you're a member. And then a shout out to Felicity Jones, who has actually been a guest of this podcast. She runs the Young Naturists of America. It is a nudist group, society, club, organization. So I like to imagine Felicity was butt naked when she became a member, and I thank you for it. And you too can become a member for as little as $1 a month. Help support the podcast. Go get some wonderful exclusive rewards for yourself. Join this very private community of members that we have. All you got to do is head on over to patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. You can do it right now from your phone while you're listening to this bad boy. That's Patreon, patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. Go become a member right now while we wrap up with Nicoletta Heidegger. So I think people should be going into being civil when you're trying to like correct someone and call someone out, because like people need to be called out. I've had to call people out. People have needed to call me out. That's a thing that just happens, and it's good and it's productive. It's how we learn.
So how do we call each other out productively? That's what you were talking about.
I think doing it with someone you give half a shit about. So to be called out by acquaintances who I don't really know, or if I've never met you in fucking person, but like we know the same people in the same industry, I would find I think a way. Let's say like we were acquaintances before today.
We're acquaintances.
Yeah, and we'd never met before today, and like I saw you post on Twitter. Maybe I don't need to yell at you, but I can reach out to someone I know knows you better, and I know them, and be like, hey, like I saw this. Like, do you know what that's about? Like, Do you think someone should like maybe talk to them about that? This is a big problem. And I think bringing other people in can help. But I think everyone responds to criticism differently. I just personally know that if I feel like it's insincere, I feel attacked. And especially if it's in a group mentality, I have a severe background with bullying.
I try not to have conversations of any nature of that kind on social media.
Well, I think
sometimes I'll call things out if I'm like particularly, triggered and feel the need to say something in a hopefully kind and productive way or educational way. But excuse me, often I won't.
I just don't think anything important in the world like should be said with thumbs. Mm-hmm. I think that should be a phone call. FaceTime the shit. Yeah. I'm thinking about doing a thing. I'm thinking about if I can prepare myself mentally for it, but I might post like on Facebook or something, be like, comment with the thing you have the biggest problem with me on, but know that you'll have to follow up with it with with a conversation over coffee or FaceTime or the phone. So it's like
that's ideal.
Yeah, because hey, I'm gonna invite you to say, I have a problem with the type of jokes you post, or I have a problem with this, or I have a problem with your fucking thin hair. The only thing is like I'm gonna follow up with you, and you're gonna have to have a longer conversation, which requires emotional energy. So if you don't think you have the emotional energy to get into the full conversation that might correct and improve that part of a person, then maybe just don't say shit at all.
When I get the haters on YouTube and stuff, I'm usually just saying like nice things back. So I'm like, thank you so much for your input. Like, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, YouTube comment threads are not fucking friendly. I gotta imagine.
Oh yeah, I try not to read any of that.
Especially being, like I said, just being a woman on the internet kind of just blows. But on YouTube, holy fuck, it's just so bad. Like, how do you care for yourself mentally? How do you do the self-care to like stay sane through that?
I guess to me, it just reminds me like this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Like your friend was talking about with the headspace. Like sometimes it does get to me for sure. Like I had recently one of my videos was taken down because it went against quote unquote community guidelines.
Whatever the fuck that means, right?
Which is so fucking ridiculous because I can literally watch porn on YouTube. I searched for like some really fucked up shit and I found it all on YouTube. So that
just to see if you can find it or because you're into it?
Well, probably both. But like I was comparing to see like what was so bad about my video because it's educational and it says educational stuff is okay. Obviously it's of a sexual nature, but it's educational. But there's lots of things on there that are not educational that are like really out there, but they're still okay. So that would mean that it's someone who didn't like me that reported one of my videos because it's all on like community reporting. Oh, that's terrible. Yeah, so that was harder, but like when I get
do they attack you like personally, like the way you look, the way you sound, and there's like, do they get personal?
I think maybe I haven't made it there yet, but hopefully I'm on my way.
That's like the good sign.
That's a good sign that you've made it when people start attacking you personally. Just some of the people on some of my more controversial videos who were like, you should just kill yourself. I hate you. You're terrible. You're a piece of shit. Like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I just say like, thank you for sharing, or I'll just flag their comment or whatever.
So I'm just waiting to make it I'll know I made it when someone starts critiquing my love handles in anger on social media.
Yeah, exactly. Because really what does that have to do about the work that you do?
Nothing. But they know it will hurt my feelings. They know it will make me cry.
So we got to get you to a therapist so it's not going to take away from your mental headspace.
Yup. I got to get me one of those sex positive therapist people. I'm going to try to find one. Oh man. Nicoletta, where can people find you? This has been so much fun. Do you have do you want to do? It's like 7:50 right now. Do you have maybe an extra 10 minutes we could do like a bonus episode if that's cool?
Yeah, I just have to like be out the taxi by 7:15.
I'll get you out before 7:15. Yeah. Nicoletta, you've been so great. We're going to do a little bonus episode. I would like to talk about minor attraction and maybe some of this fucked up shit you seem to be into. But until then, where can people go find you?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Ms. Heidegger, MSHEIDEGGER. You can also check out my podcast, Sluts and Scholars, which is available on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, anywhere you get your podcasts.
You're on the Spotify?
We're not on the Spotify.
You got to get on the Spotify.
Are you on the Spotify?
Yeah, I got a heavy Spotify audience.
Oh my God, how do I get the in?
Where do you host your shit? Libsyn?
Libsyn, yeah.
Oh yeah, just go to destinations, add the Spotify destination, and done.
So I don't even have to apply?
Not anymore. They've opened the floodgates.
Shut the front door.
No big deal. I've been on there for like a couple years. I got
oh my God, you fucker. Okay.
But it's open. Yeah. So if you're listening on Spotify, by the time you hear this episode, she'll be on Spotify.
Or you can check out my website, NicolettaVHeidegger.com. NicolettaV and then Heidegger, Heidegger.
Fantastic. And I'll be posting a link to some of those places you mentioned that where people could probably find like a sex positive therapist.
Oh yeah, I would love to
in
share
their
those
area.
resources.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's the most common post in question I see posted in like sex positive subreddits or in like private sex pos Facebook groups or poly Facebook groups is where can I find a poly friendly, a queer friendly, or a sex positive therapist. So I will put a link to that in the show notes. But until our Patreon bonus episode, why don't you go say goodbye to everybody?
Thanks so much for having me. I hope you reach out, and I would love any and all of your sex questions.
Ooh, yeah. You know, we talked a lot about the haters on this week's episode, and even in the intro, you know, that fella who was so shocked that I was a half decent human being. You know, it makes me, it makes me think about taking criticism, and I want to read something that was tweeted by Dr. Timmery, who has been on this podcast herself. She has her own great show, Sex with Timmery. She tweeted something that I am taking to heart. As part of my self-care. It says, a friend suggested I have a checklist to determine if I needed to worry about someone's criticism. Do they know me? Do they care about me? Do I need to work with them? Adding this filter has dramatically reduced the amount of time I waste on haters. Now, I don't know who she was writing about. She could be writing about men's rights activist trolls. Who knows? But me, I know that I get kind of shit on from both the left and the right. And I'm going to be trying to add that filter into my life so that hopefully y'all will be hearing less about my drama with haters on the internet than I normally do. And I want to thank Nicoletta for joining the show, for coming on, and for indulging me in my share. So I appreciate that. I hope you all go check out her show, the Sluts and Scholars Podcast, which you can find pretty much anywhere else you're listening to this show right here. She is, again, on Twitter and Instagram at Miss Heidegger, MISSHIDEGGER. I am on Twitter and Instagram at The Billy Procida. Give a shout out to both of us. When you say you love one of my guests, if they have a Twitter handle, tag them in it. They would love to see the compliment. Use the hashtag ManWhorePodcast so we can keep track of you. And if you want to say something a little privately, you can always shoot me an email with your comments, your questions, your titty pictures to manwhorepod@gmail.com. If you want to hear her bonus episode all about minor attraction, become a member of my fan whore community on Patreon for $5 a month or more to have access to that tomorrow. You'll get access to her bonus episode and dozens of other bonus shows that are available exclusively on Patreon when you visit patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. I'll spell it out one more time. patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. I hope to get to interact with y'all next week during the Fan Whore Facebook Live Hangout. Next week, we've got a very funny comedian and fuckboy supreme, or I may have to say retired fuckboy, comedian Eagle Wit. Until next week, enjoy yourselves, stay out of trouble, oh gosh, avoid the drama, and stay slutty.